Hello there, welcome to this lesson which is all about the OET Writing subtest, so your OET letters. And this is aimed especially at UK junior doctors who've been abroad to study, are coming back and need to apply for their UK Foundation programme. So first of all then, who needs to get 400 in their OET? And that's basically doctors applying to enrol on a UK Foundation programme. You need to score 400 in each part. For those of you who just need to register with the GMC, maybe you're already qualified as a doctor from overseas, then you need to get a grade B, which equates to 350 in each part. So even though this video is specifically aimed at those wishing to get 400 and needing to get 400, it's going to be useful for everyone because obviously the more that you know, the better you can perform and hopefully the better grade you can get overall. What we're going to be looking at in this lesson is first of all a quick introduction to the OET for those of you who don't know it, and then a very quick look at the assessment criteria. I've got much longer videos about this, so if you want to have a look, please check them out. If you're very happy and you know all about the OET and you know the assessment criteria, then skip forward to the next part. I'm going to actually timestamp this so you'll be able to do that at a click of a button, and we're going to be analysing a model answer together and see what it takes to get 400. Why is this sample so good? For those of you who don't know me, hello, my name's Sona. I'm your online OET tutor with Bose Learning, and I'm a premium preparation provider. And I'm very happy you're here to upgrade your OET with me. So as I say, this is going to be a little bit of a long session today, so feel free to press that pause button, grab a cup of tea and a biscuit or two, and a pen and paper so you can take notes, and let's get started. So what is the OET? Well, it's the Occupational English Test, and it's actually designed to test the language of healthcare professionals. It's recognised by various healthcare bodies such as the GMC, the NMC. It's recognised in Australia, America, and Canada. And it's designed to assess the language communication skills of healthcare professionals who wish to register and work in an English speaking country. Now, for a lot of you Brits out there, this is quite frustrating because you've just been abroad to study, but you still need to prove your English skills. And of course, you haven't forgotten all your English in the time you've been away. Nevertheless, this is a hoop you have to jump through, and hopefully, this video will make that jumping a little bit easier for you. The test itself is divided into 4 subtests. The first one is the reading, which is split into 3. Part A is quick skimming and scanning. It focuses on medication guidance, treatment pathways, and it's the kind of thing you would read with a patient in front of you, and perhaps you just want to double check dosage or a particular indication of a drug that you're about to prescribe. Part B are short workplace texts, the kind of emails you might read about updates, meetings, or perhaps a manual and you're checking to see how to work a particular piece of equipment. Part C are longer texts, and they are the kinds of texts you would read for professional development. They're always about general healthcare topics. Listening, again, is split into 3 parts. Part A, you have to fill in the gaps, and you're going to hear 2 professionals taking patient history. Part B are short workplace extracts, such as handover notes or listening to training. And Part C, you're going to hear longer interviews and presentations, and again, they're on general healthcare topics, kind of a podcast you might listen to, for professional development. The speaking part sounds quite simple by comparison. It's just 2 5-minute role plays. If you do want more information about these 3, then feel free to check out my other videos, which specifically take you through some training for each of these aspects. As to the writing, then, this is what we're focusing on today. You'll be given a set of case notes, and you're asked to write a referral or a discharge letter, and this might be to a colleague, the patient themselves, or perhaps to their carer. you're going to get 45 minutes in the test to do that. 5 minutes just to read the notes. You'll still have the notes with you, but then you get 40 minutes to actually write your letter. Okay, how is this going to be assessed then? If you understand what they're looking for, then it's kind of easier to give them what they want. And the thing to bear in mind here is that it is an English test. So I know in real life, referrals, discharges are anything between 2 lines long or 2 pages long in my experience, but this is not the case with the OET. In the OET, you need to be writing about 180 to 200 words, and that's the body of your letter. It doesn't include the address, etc. But let's have a look at this criteria then. It's split 6 ways. The first one is purpose, and your job here is to make sure that the reason you're writing, the purpose, is clear straight away. It's apparent from your opening paragraph, and then it's sufficiently expanded in the rest of your letter. Next comes content. Here you've got to make sure that it's appropriate to the reader, there's nothing essential missing, and it's accurate, so all the data you present is correct. Basically, what you want to be able to do is to ensure that the reader can continue caring for the patient after they've read your letter. Of course, they're going to have the case notes with them, the patient file, but basically, your letter is a cover letter. It summarises everything that they need to know to continue caring for your patient. The next step is conciseness and clarity. Now, we all know that as healthcare professionals, your time is precious. You don't have lots and lots of time to read waffle about the patient's 2 dogs if they're not relevant. You need to be able to read something easily, quickly, and be able to action what the request is asking of you. So that's the way you need to think and write about your letter. Be efficient, make sure it's easy to read, don't include anything extra, and make sure it's nice and clearly presented. Then we've got genre and style. What does that mean? Well, we've got to make sure that the way you're writing is appropriate to the reader. For example, if you're writing to a patient, you would perhaps explain medical terms, whereas if you're writing to the expert, the consultant, you wouldn't do that. So think about what you need to explain. Think about abbreviations. Will your colleague understand the same abbreviations you use or not? And also be factual, be non-judgmental. Then we've got organisation and layout. Make sure all the key information is highlighted and any subsections are clearly presented. And finally comes language. That's the grammar, the spelling, the punctuation. You don't need to worry too much here if you're an English speaker, but I do recommend you give yourself time to proofread because everyone makes mistakes, especially under exam conditions. So check what you're writing, check you've got that spelling right, that punctuation. If you're doing the handwritten test, then make sure your handwriting is clear. No doctor's scrawl, please. And if you're doing the computerized version and you're typing, still please double check everything. Of course, the spell function is disabled from the test. The first one, purpose, is marked out of 3. You really need to be getting 3 here. There's no real excuses why you shouldn't be. However, this is something that the OET have pointed out to us teachers that doctors often miss out on. They don't read carefully. Please read carefully. Please make sure the purpose is nice and clear and get that 3. The rest is all marked out of 7. Now, to get 350, you need to be scoring about 5s. But to get that 400, you need to be aiming for 6 out of 7s in each part here. If you want a much more detailed explanation of the criteria, please take a look at my other videos. Again, I'm not going to go into that here, but I have done previously. Now that we've had a look at the criteria really quickly, let's take a look at some sample case notes And then we'll look at how you can apply the criteria when you write your letter. And of course, how you can score 400 in your OET writing. So this is taken from sample letter 5. It's available on the OET website, but what I want to do today is to talk you through it and to show you what makes that 400 letter. So let me give you a couple of minutes just to read this if you haven't already. Okay, so this always stays the same. They're asking you to expand the notes, not to use note form, to use a proper letter format, and to write about 180 to 200 words in the body. This is the important part for you. What are they asking? Well, they're asking you to write a letter of referral to a consultant cardiologist. This is the patient, and you've been asked to ask Dr. Banerjee for advice and a review of her medication. So there's two things that you're requesting Dr. Banerjee to do: advise her and review her medication. And then in your body, outline briefly Miss Bennett's history and treatment. They tell you the address to write to. And as a little aside, I really love these Jane Austen references here. And then your case notes will look something like this. We'll have a look in more detail shortly, but I just want to give you an idea about how they might look. This is actually quite a short one. Sometimes the case notes are a full 2 pages long. It will never be longer than 2 A4 sides. Okay, then, so purpose. Remember, this means that the reader takes a look at your opening paragraph and knows what it's about. They know if this is urgent, if it's a referral, if it's a discharge, just from your opening lines. And remember, be accurate. Read the information in the writing task carefully. So they'll always tell you what you have to do. Read that, find out how many things they're asking of you. Is it one? Is it two? Is it three? Make a note of that. Personalise the introduction to reflect this, and then follow up again at the end. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, then let's move on to content. Remember, that's the next criterion that you're going to be assessed on. And for this letter, your job is to briefly outline Miss Bennett's history and treatment so far. So go through the case notes, underline things connected to what actually happened, the history, what kind of treatment the patient was given, and then the mental and social background as well. Then, because you're doing a review or you're requesting a review, look out for medication and what effect it's had on the patient. Why does she ask for a change? So, the key here is to summarise these two things. Another thing you can think about when you're trying to pick out the information and pick out how you're going to summarise is to think about a timeline. Check the clarity of your timeline in your own mind and also make sure that that's nice and clear to the reader. For example, don't forget dates if they're relevant. These are things that are important and which, again, the OET has told us teachers that doctors often miss out. So please make sure that you're including these things to get that 400. We'll come back a little bit more to content and arranging the content, but I just want to focus on conciseness and clarity next because this is the next criterion. And here, again, the idea is that you're effectively summarising the information. You're combining things as you need to, and you're making sure that anything not so crucial is left out because you're being kind to the reader. You don't want them to read extra information that won't help them. So you can see here that in the notes, they actually detail what happened. She had a pain in her jaw, nausea, shortness of breath, there was a defibrillator applied, then she was admitted. She had the balloon stent, which initially was attempted to be inserted into the arm, but the artery was too small, etc., etc. So we have quite a lot of detail here and here. We then have information about her discharge plan, that she was given 4 weeks off work, there was a gradual return to work, her mother moved in, and the patient had more stress due to a poor relationship with her mother. But how much do I actually need in terms of content? In terms of clarity, do I need to say all this about her pain in her jaw? No, we just need to know that she suffered a heart attack. The consultant will understand what some of the symptoms are for that. We don't need to know, or the reader doesn't need to know, that a defibrillator was applied. How is that going to help the reader in their treatment, in their review of the medication? It won't at all. We just need to know she had a heart attack after a flight. She was admitted into emergency. She had this stent applied, and then we don't need to know about this discharge. We can summarise the poor relationship later, maybe, but we don't need all this information. What about medication? Well, always put in medication for a doctor. But again, see about how you can combine all the relevant information. So let's look at how this is done then. So if we have a look at the sample letter, number 5, as I say, I've got the URL here. I'll also pop it into the information box so you can go away and check it out yourself. So you'll see here that it's a standard letter format. We've got the addressee's name, the date, which, as I said, they mention on the actual case notes itself. You can put the date here, you can put the date here, it doesn't matter. You write the reader's name, the patient's name, and their date of birth in the reline. Then you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 body paragraphs, and then the typical ending. So we have here this timeline of the 8th of February, and then today, and then what happened in between. So Miss Bannert had an emergency admission at Oakville General Hospital on 8th of February, so nice and clear. Then we've got what happened, and then she saw me today. So we have this timeline here in between. She suffered the heart attack, she was given this treatment, this is her lifestyle, but she was offered cardiac rehabilitation, but she hasn't been to them. And so we come to organisation. Is the information chronologically presented? Is it ISBAR? So I know some of you are familiar with that. How has it been presented? And how is the request really clear? So remember, these things are going to get you that 400. So let's go back to this. How has this been presented? So it's a little bit chronological, isn't it? Because we have the emergency admission, what happened, having suffered a heart attack. So we don't start with the heart attack, we start with the admission. Then she was given the balloon expandable stent. We don't need to know that first it was attempted to be inserted into the arm, irrelevant. And we just need to know what she was prescribed. Again, the name, the dosage. Then, what was she advised at the time? She was advised to make lifestyle changes. Why is that important to know? Because the reader is going to review this, is going to make some suggestions, some further suggestions to your patient. So because the reader needs to know all of this, he needs to know that she's a heavy drinker, 40 units a week, and a smoker, 20 per day. Also, that she's overweight and does little exercise. Factual, she was referred for cardiac habilitation sessions but has failed to attend. So we're summarising all her lifestyle here and what happened. Then, moving on to today, she came to see me. This is the reason you're writing. She has problems with dizziness, headaches, and diarrhea. She's asked to discontinue the medication because she thinks that the symptoms are attributed to the side effects. This is why you want the cardiologist to review. So, again, nice and clear. What else does the reader need to know? Some extra useful information about her family history. So we have this summarised here. Also the stress, because again, this is quite important. It's a factor that the reader will need to know in order to keep caring for your patient. So we have this summarised here. So we have a nice summary of what happened, a nice summary of her lifestyle, and a nice summary of the current complaint, and then any additional information. So hopefully you can see how this has all been summarised. We don't particularly need to know that the alcohol intake has increased. We just need to know what it is now. We need to know that she smokes, that she does little exercise, and of course her family history. And then how is this request nice and clear at the end? Again, we've got this nice closing sentence before yours sincerely, and then you just sign doctor, you don't sign your name. Okay, what about language then? How is this appropriate to the reader? Well, first of all, don't bother using any unnecessary language like nevertheless or unfortunately. It's great for IELTS if you're coming from an academic background, but not for the OET. So the OET, don't. It's not professional. We don't need to say she was offered cardiac rehabilitation sessions, but unfortunately, she nevertheless failed to attend. Those are extra words we don't need, so just keep them out. Also, be careful about writing anything with a negative connotation. So, although obese, for example, is a clinical term, it also has a negative connotation. So, just write the BMI, for example. Finally, don't forget punctuation. Make sure that's nice and clear. And as I say, proofread. Make sure what you've written reads correctly and you've not missed anything out. If you have, then just put an asterisk and you can do that and indicate where you have missed out the information. But I'd rather you plan what you're going to write in each of the paragraphs first. Invest some time in planning, get your layout right, think about what the reader needs to know, and then start writing. So, really, you have 45 minutes, 5 minutes to read. Spend another 5 minutes planning what you're going to write and then write. Don't just launch into it. So, my tips then are always keep the reader in mind. What does the reader need to know to be able to take over the care of your patient? And they should be able to do this after reading your letter. So, the content should be accurate, it should be clear, it should be precise, and also efficient. Don't put in any extra information, summarise wherever you can. Think about a clear timeline and then check what you've written. Make sure it makes sense. And that's how you get a 400 in your OET. Well, if you like this video, I'd be so happy if you could help my channel to grow. Just send it to a colleague, press that like button, or subscribe to me. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments box and I'll try and answer them for you. If you do want some feedback on your writing, then I'm also going to put in some information about my writing feedback service. That's where I would email you the case notes, you'd email me back your typed letter for feedback and assessment, which I would then return to you. Also, if you do want some on-demand courses and you want to know more about all things OET, then I'm going to put up some links and discount codes for you again in the information box below. And that's it then. Well, thanks very much for watching. Feel free to have a look at my other videos if you want to know more about the OET. And take care. Good luck. Let me know how it all goes. Bye bye.